Hello, this is Greg Elson Green Greg. It's coming to you on the 23rd February 22. Time on deck 1800 hours Central Standard Time. My friends, the world today is very dangerous. There are quite a few different things that could lead to radiological nuclear war events, other events that could give you radiological contamination. These include full-scale nuclear war. They include dirty bombs. They include events such as meltdowns in our nuclear power plants and in our spent fuel rod pools, especially if the power grid goes down for many and sundry reasons, which I've covered oftentimes in the past, to include the sun. If nothing else happens, if we don't get our power grid hardened, the sun eventually will get us, and there will be widespread radiological events in the United States of America and around the world. You need to prepare for these. These are serious, and given the tensions in the world today between the United States and Russia, the United States and China, and even the potential of tensions between Pakistan and India, which could spread some radiation over here should they go to nuclear war. We got to consider this. Also consider that Pakistan has a lot of strong Taliban influences there. The Taliban has a whole lot more strength today. And my friend, Ambassador Hank Cooper, actually thinks that the nukes in Pakistan are at risk of eventual takeover from the Taliban. Or something, oh no, we'd secure those. I've heard that already. Yeah, just like we secured our bases against the Taliban in Afghanistan, right? Yeah, okay. Let's see how that goes. There is some risk here. And then there's always a potential of a terrorist event, making a dirty bomb, which is a lot easier to do than you might think, considering the widespread existence of medical grade radioactive waste. And it's just a bomb with radioactive stuff around it, okay, my friends? And also consider that in the days of the Cold War, we had the luxury of a long flight time between, well, 45 minutes or so between the United States and Russia to discern whether we were truly under nuclear attack or not. And we had several instances that we thought we were under nuclear attack. They thought they were under nuclear attack. And fortunately, thankfully to that long flight time, we were able to discern there was not a real attack coming. Well, my friends, today that margin of safety is gone because there are hypersonic weapons that have very short flight time. Some fly like cruise missiles, so the warning time is going to be zilch. If you think you're under nuclear attack, you're liable to launch and you weren't under attack. So we now live in an era where mistakes are much more possible. And once upon a time in the Cold War, when we just had two superpowers, those days are over because we face also today China, Russia, North Korea, and possibly even eventually Iran, and who knows what else. So it is a multipolar world, which makes it far more unstable. And bear in mind, we did come close to nuclear war with Russia on multiple occasions, especially the Cold War, the Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh yeah, and Russia's talking about putting missiles in Cuba again. Interesting, right? In Venezuela. Okay, and we think China may, and Iran's already doing it maybe. So think about this, my friends. The potential is getting off the charts. But during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we came so close that there was a nuclear submarine commander ordered this torpedo man to launch a nuclear torpedo at a U.S. warship. He refused to do so. His life was pretty much destroyed due to his refusal, but he pretty much saved the world in 1962. Thankfully to him, we're still here. Thankfully to that man. And I hear there's another occasion that also occurred during that crisis. So guys, the possibility for nuclear war exists. We came extremely close. We've been playing Russian roulette. Now we've just adding more rounds in the chamber. That little revolver you spin when you play Russian roulette, maybe you got 6 chambers and one's got a round. We just stuck a few more rounds in it. So the prospects here are high. Ukraine may not spin into a nuclear war, but the conflict there will not directly lead to a nuclear war, and we're not directly involved in that conflict, at least as of now. But there are plenty of ways and pathways for that to escalate. And who knows what Putin really wants in the long run. So, my friends, there's a lot to consider here. Now, whichever side you fall in on, there's still pathways for escalation. And whatever you think about that, you may be facing the effects of it in your life. That's the reality you got to consider. You got to ponder that. So, and like again, I said, you got to worry about the nuclear power plants, irrespective of everything else, given that we could go to a grid down. And individually, a plant is safe. But when you consider collectively with a grid down, situation, you're going to have problems. Especially now the sun is kicking up, our magnetic field's dropping down. We'll go all into that. Okay, Maurice, I'm going to give you a very intense presentation, PowerPoint presentation with a lot of charts and going into great technical details, more so than my other presentations that have covered this topic. Some of it will be similar material, but we're going to dig into it, and we're going to have to go fast because there's a lot to cover. So bear all that in mind. So please subscribe to my channel, bang the notification bell, and click all, because I bring this to you as part of my eyes wide open and head on a swivel series so that you can know what's coming at you. And please share these videos with friends and families, because the more you get them encouraged in prepping, that's why I do these videos, then the more people there are out there that are prepared. The more prepared people there are, the less people that are out there looking to eat other people. So this is, everybody needs to be prepared. If everybody's prepared, we wouldn't have to worry about it so much, but no, people won't do it. So we got to worry about the belly raise. Okay, all that said, I do have also videos on here about how to garden without having to go to the store. That's what my garden videos cover. So that's what you're going to have to know how to do when the grid goes down in the post-apocalyptic world. You're going to have to save your seeds, though, perhaps, because if we have a nuclear winter, you're not going to be able to grow stuff for a few years. Same might be true for a volcanic winter, or there's other type of events that could lead you to a point where you can't grow things for a few years. And for that reason, you do need long-term food storage. I do have some videos on one of the big box stores. I also have videos on how to eat free from the weeds and the trees, but even that stuff won't be growing so much in the nuclear winter. So you need long-term food storage. Again, you can go to big box stores and buy the beans and rice. I highly encourage it, but you're gonna need more than just that. So I got a special deal right now. If you go to prepwithgreg.com, right now you can get $50 off a 4-week supply of food that lasts 25 years. You get 2 of these buckets for 2 weeks each. They have 2,000 calories a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You got some drinks and desserts. Deal will make you a winner. 2,000 calories is more than most of the competitors offer. They're offering like 800 calories a day and calling that a deal. No, that's worse than a starvation diet. 2,000 calories a day is what you need at least to get by in these times. So this is cool because this stuff is lightweight. It's easy to store. It comes in these packages that you can bury. So when they're going through your house looking for your supplies, they ain't there. You still got them though. That's what's cool about this. Unlike glass jars and a lot of cans, which are hard to maintain if you bury, this stuff is sealed when you get it, and the packets in them are sealed, and also easy to put in your backpack and carry, or individually bury and hide, and cache points along whatever bug out routes you may choose. So if you go in there, nobody has supplies, the breadth of supplies of My Patriot Supply. That is my source. You go to prepwithgreg.com. You get the deal for $50 off for a 4-week supply. You get $150 off for a 3-week supply. Go in and click the My Patriot Supply logo on the top. It'll take you in. Simply nobody out there has the breadth of supplies of My Patriot Supply. You can also get water filtration, air filtration, and other prepping supplies that you will need in events like these. So check it out by all means. Look at it. The Canadian Prepper is saying that the prices of this stuff from all the memos he's getting from other suppliers is going to dramatically, painfully rise very fast. So get it while the getting's good, my friends. It's an investment. With inflation coming, this is a financial investment, if nothing else, because it's a deal. Check it out, prepwithgreg.com. Now, let's get on to the story here. I got a lot of PowerPoint I got to go through, and we got to go through it fast, so let's hit it. Surviving nuclear war, my friends. This is not a pretty picture that we got to deal with. And hey, I don't mean to be the prophet of doom here. We're going to talk about how to get through these things. So what you got to understand is radiation. And there's 2 types of radiation, ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. Radiation is simply energy radiating out, right? Okay, that's simple. So now we break that down to the non-ionizing and ionizing. Non-ionizing radiation is not threatening. It might heat you up if you get it in enough volume, like even infrared sunlight will burn you, microwave can burn and cook. Any of these things will if it's intense enough, but it's not ionizing. It doesn't break the chemical bonds in your tissues that can cause DNA damage. So this is considered non-life threatening, unless you get a 3-degree sunburn, okay? This is considered on the safer end of the spectrum. So even at lower end, there's non-thermal. You get thermal, you get optical, and then here is the broken bonds. This is the ionizing radiation part, okay, my friends? What happens with ionizing radiation? Ionizing radiation is radiation that goes through you and causes the electrons in your atoms to get knocked out. It's because it's electrically charged or extremely high powerful. It knocks those electrons out. And then you got an ionization trail throughout your tissue where these particles go through you. And that leaves a trail of broken DNA that can kill you if it's enough of it broken, because your cells aren't functioning, or otherwise it can cause genetic mutations, which could lead to cancer and other things down the road. So it's got short-term effects. If you get high enough dose rates, then it will kill you. If the dose rates are low, then it could cause long-term problems with cancer and things like that. So again, so what we got here is radio spectrum is here. See, you get static fields, power lines, like 60 hertz. You got AM radio down here. FM radio is higher frequency. Your Wi-Fi is here in the microwave range, actually. And 5G is in this range too. That is underneath infrared. Yeah, 5G is way over here, guys. It's underneath infrared. Infrared is light. You may have a clicker on your for your TV. It's probably infrared. Infrared, it can give you a tan or it can give you a sunburn. That's, visible light can burn too, but it's not the same. So what we worry about is UVs for burning your skin. But guys, look at this. So as we go up through the optical and go higher, once we get up here in the ultraviolet, this is the ones that get you. It's really the ultraviolets that burn your skin, excuse me. It's the ultraviolets that can give you the sunburn and cause you problems if you get enough of them. But ultraviolet over here, my infrared used to heat stuff, but ultraviolet is what can really burn you. And so you got this little breakdown here on the other side of the optical where you get broken bonds. You got ultraviolet, you got X-rays and gamma rays. And that's the amount of energy, because as the frequency gets really high, you get more energy within this. This is all photons. This is for photons. This is for light, basically. Yeah, photons. It's the same thing from radio waves to gamma rays. They're photons, but the frequency gets so high up here that the energy it gets really high within them. You have two types of energy in a photon or a light wave, and it is the amplitude of the wave and the frequency of the wave. And here we're talking to the frequency components of them. Amplitude gives you louder, signal, you might say. But the biggest thing is the frequency. It's the frequency that leads to these things. So you get tandem boost down here. You got medical X-rays over here, and then you get the gamma rays. Okay, enough said about that. And again, this is the same thing, and this is showing the frequency is going up. It's getting higher and higher frequency, and that's the wave counts per minute. Okay, and so we got electrical power down here, our electronics devices. Yeah, your clicker is an RV, infrared. You've got the visible light, tannin boost, X-rays, and this is the bad stuff. Just another way to look at it. So what you have is in a nuclear event is you have radioactive particles. Now you have in a nuclear event, you get a lot of atoms, a lot of different things get charged up. They get radioactive. And when they get radioactive, they emit particles. It's the emitted particles that are the radiation. That is what you radiate when you're radioactive. So we're talking about the emitted particles, not the dust itself or the atoms. We're talking, I've had some confusion with a previous presenter on this. It is the emitted, or I'm an engineer, so I'm going to put it to you straight. It is the emitted particles you worry about. And they are alpha, beta, gamma rays, typically. If there's a neutron bomb, you might get neutrons, or if there's cosmic rays from space, which you're not going to see here on the ground. So you're probably not going to worry about the neutrons unless somebody hits us with a neutron bomb. Alpha particles are helium atoms. Beta particles are electrons. That's a subatomic particle, and your lightest weight subatomic particle, or atomic particle, accelerated at high velocity. Gamma rays, again, these are photons, light particles at high frequency. So of these, it's generally considered that gamma rays are the most dangerous because they can penetrate. But what you have to know is if you swallow them, it's the alpha particles that's the most dangerous. This is something one of my previous presenters neglected. The alpha particles are extremely dangerous if you swallow them, if you get them inside of you, because they're a gift that just keeps on giving. The alpha particles is a helium atom nucleus. As a helium atom nucleus, it is missing 2 electrons. Therefore, it is a number 2 positive, which gives it a very high electrical charge. So it can do a lot of damage that an alpha particle can. And these are emitted from radiological sources. And we're going to talk some about these different radiological sources that can be emitting these in a moment. The beta particle, again, is the electron. So the helium atom, though, fortunately, can be blocked by a sheet of paper, and maybe a piece of wood or an aluminum plate will stop a beta particle. But it may take a lot of dense material to stop the gamma rays, and we're going to go into that in a minute. This is why, a lot of people are more afraid of the gamma rays. This is what you shield against. These particles here, you try to keep them from getting in your house and on your person. And if you get in, if you're near a nuclear event where you think you may have these on you, your skin will protect you, your clothing will protect you, but you're going to have to pull them off and take a shower afterwards. We'll talk about decontamination in a moment. Again, alpha, beta, and gamma. It takes a sheet of paper, maybe an aluminum plate, or even possibly a piece of wood, or a lot of lead or other dense material to stop the gamma rays. This is the difference here. Okay, let's look here. They come from decay. This talks about different decay particles here. We're not going to go into the equations for these. But all you need to know is there's a particle that emits a particle. And so it's a daughter particle and a particle emitted in each case. And sometimes it's putting out an alpha particle, sometimes a beta particle, and a gamma ray. These all come out of radioactive materials, my friends. When something's radioactive, it can be emitting any of these. So this is what you need to know. There's different types of decays and emissions. And even any of your radioactive dust can be emitting these things. So just bear that in mind. So we'll go down here to the next one. My friends, I can't go to full page and capture all this with my viewer that I'm using here. If I start flipping charts, it does not track. It only shows the first chart. I don't know why. Here is some of the fallout nuclear radionuclides, which are the emitters that you've got to worry about. These are the ones we're hearing most about: americium-241, cesium-137, iodine-131, and strontium-90. Now, americium, I can't even talk today. It puts out alpha and gamma particles, but it has a half-life of 432 years. What's a half-life? That's how long it takes for half of its capacity to emit radiation to go to half-life, or half capacity, basically. So if it's, say, putting out 10 particles per minute, or an hour, this is how long it takes to get down to 5, okay? And americium, now I got it. Americium is produced when plutonium absorbs neutrons in a nuclear reactor or during your explosion. So this is you get americium from plutonium bombs. Cesium-137. This is a byproduct of nuclear fission, and every hydrogen bomb has a nuclear atom bomb, a fission bomb, to initiate it. So you got 2 pieces of that explosion. So you're going to get cesium either from nuclear plants. So this stuff went around the world. There was low dosages of cesium went around the world after Fukushima. Cesium emits beta particles and gamma particles. Okay, so you got those helium nucleuses and the high energy not electrons, but photons. It has a half-life of 30.17 years. So that's still fairly long, but nowhere near as bad as americium. All right, iodine. This is the one you take iodine for, the potassium iodide tablets, because this will get into your thyroid. And it has a half-life of basically 131 years. And it permits beta and gamma particles. So you can get this from nuclear weapons testing, nuclear weapons, fission. This is a fission byproduct, and nuclear power plants. So you can expect iodine to be in the mix. All right. And I'm going to make this point here. While the blast and shock wave and thermal effects are nearest ground zero, the residual radiation effects via nuclear fallout can endanger thousands more for hundreds of miles downwind. This radiation hazard carries on the winds and has the potential to sicken and kill the greatest number of people. As seen above, the nuclear fallout radiation measured at rads per hour, we're going to go into what a rad is in a moment, is highest near ground zero. But Chernobyl proved documented cases of radioactive iodine causing thyroid cancer 500 kilometers or 310 miles downwind. So this tells you what you got to deal with here. And that's why I'm putting this in, because you can get effects and cancers way downwind. The danger zone is truly extensive. While not high enough to be harmful, radioactive iodine is even measured in dairy milk for cows raised in Chernobyl nuclear fallout contaminated pastures in the state of Washington, Washington, here in the United States. The state of Washington, we had from Chernobyl, we had contamination with our cows with radioactive iodine. Radioactive iodine is a special case expected to be responsible for the majority of health issues the farthest downwind. So this is why they tell you to take those iodine tablets, so your thyroid don't absorb that. You don't want this stuff inside of you. Once it gets inside of you, it's going to keep radiating and cause all kind of problems for you. Fortunately, there is a cheap and easy prophylactic OTC drug, the potassium iodine, which can give you nearly 100% protection. There is too much to be said about radioactive iodine and potassium to do so here, which includes people talking about table salt. Yeah, table salt with iodine in it may help a little bit, but they say it won't do nearly as good as the potassium iodine tablets. This is what you take right here for this. So you need to get you some of these in case we have an event like that. Have you a few packs of this on hand and keep them handy. This is showing some of the radioactive coverage that came out from nuclear tests way back in 1966 over here in Russia, and now it's spread all over the United States. So the idea that this stuff don't spread is bogus. It has spread. It's been detected. We had the radiation detection from Fukushima. All right, here's the biggie. Strontium 90. Fortunately, half-life is only 29 years. But this stuff is very strong, and it's on the periodic table underneath calcium. So it has an affinity. Your bones have an affinity for it. It looks at this just like it would look at calcium. This can get absorbed into your bones, and once in your bones, it just keeps on giving bad radiation. You don't want strontium 90 in your system at all. So you got to be very careful about consuming things, and we'll go into this that may have these kind of particles in them. All right, here we are talking about shielding for gamma rays. And there's something known as a protection factor. And the protection factor is basically of each particle that gets through, how many were there total that started out. So if you got a protection factor of 32, it means you had enough shielding to block 31 gamma rays. You're still getting one, but all the rest of these were blocked. And this is considered to be a pretty adequate shelter once you down to a protection factor of 32. And if you're using packed earth, it takes about 18 inches of it to accomplish that. If it's not packed, it takes twice as much, maybe 36 inches. 2 foot might do. 2 foot might do. In fact, I've seen some shelter plans that have been put out with the notion of having 2 foot of dirt, but it was in concrete, encased in concrete too, which is a little denser. So this is broken down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sections here, and are 3.6 inches each, and they show you the radioactive protective factor for each depth of packed earth. This is packed earth, and this comes to us from the Oak Ridge National Laboratory. All these things I show you here with ORNL, or Oak Ridge National Laboratory drawings, and you'll see several of these in my presentation and several other books out there on radioactive events. Okay, radioactive protection. Radiation spreads out from an emitter by the rules of inverse square law, and typically one of the measurements is becquerel. I can't pronounce some of these words. So transmission factors means that at 1 unit out, what you get here at 1 unit out in terms of density will be diminished 9 times when you're 3 units out. That's inverse square law. Okay, 4 times at 2 units out, 9 times at 3 out. It drops off with distance rapidly, fortunately. Okay, and so that is what you need to know with this. The crazy thing about radiation is you don't feel anything at first. You feel fine, maybe at first. If you got a fatal dose, you're probably going to be vomiting shortly thereafter, though. Yeah, it don't shoot you it don't feel like a bullet going through you, a sword stabbing you, but you're going to pay for it down the road, because everything that happened in that ionization path hasn't kicked in just yet. So you're not going to be like Spock in the movie Wrath of the Khan, where you feel it right off the bat, you know. Not immediately, but you're going to be feeling it very soon if it's a fatal dose, and maybe not at all if it's going to be something that's going to cause you cancer down the road. You may think you're fine, but you're not. So let's talk about rotogens, rads, and rims. Radiation is measured in so many becquerels, radiogen, rads, realms. There's just too many terms floating around, and sometimes it's hard for people to distinguish them. A rotogen is a unit measured in air. So this is what's actually in the environment. The rotogen measures the energy produced by gamma ray radiation, and again, it's gamma ray, in a cubic meter of air. It's usually abbreviated with an R. And then a millirotogen would be a thousandth of that, okay? Or MR is equal to 1,000th of a rotogen. Exposure to 50 rotogens will be written as 50R. That's not MR. MR would be milli. All right. A rad, or radiation absorbed dose, RAD, radiation absorbed dose, recognizes that different materials receive the same exposure may not absorb the same amount of energy. So you got a rotogen in the air, but everything doesn't get a full rotogen. A RAD measures the amount of energy transferred to some mass of material, typically humans. One rotogen, gamma ray radiation exposes results to about 1 rad of absorbed dose. So they're basically close to being equivalent, at least for humans. Some things may not be so absorptive, but for us, it don't make a lot of difference. A REM, a rotogen equivalent man, is a unit that relates to the dose of any radiation to the biological effect of that dose. I mean, how does it affect you biologically? That's what a REM is, a rotogen, this is this guy, equivalent man. So to relate the absorbed dose of a specific types of radiation to their biological effect, a quality factor must be multiplied by the dose in rad. So you get some effect that you multiply by, which then shows that the dose in realms for radiation rays and beta particles, 1 rad exposed results in a REM. So what do we get here? For us, in all intents and purposes, these units are the same. So we're kind of splitting hairs here, but to radiological experts, that'd be heresy for me to say that. But for us laymen, these terms are so close to each other, it don't make a lot of difference in terms for us human beings. It might for devices such as electronics devices. Might be way different. One other measurement terms is in the system of international measures, which are used in place of REM and RAD, are the sievert in the gray. You hear sieverts a lot, microsieverts or something like that, and a lot of instruments are rated in sieverts. These units are rated as follows. 1 sievert is 100 REM. So it takes 100 of these to make a sievert, okay? 100 REMs to make a sievert. One gray is 100 rad. So sievert is this and rad. So a gray and a sievert are about the same, okay? A gray and a sievert are about the same for us, for all in terms and purposes, about 100, okay? 2 other terms which are refer to the rate of radioactive decay, the rate at which things decay, are the Curie and the Becquerel. I've heard that from us, I can't get it right now, okay? So radiological effects. The smallest dose detectable and by laboratory is 50 rotogens. Again, this is in the air, right? A rotogen. Go back up. The rotogen is in the air. So 75 to 100 may cause transient nausea. You may get sick briefly. And exposure to 10% of the people exposed. Then if you got 250, largest dose that does not cause severe enough illness, severe enough to require medical care to most people, 90 to 95%. That's 200 rotogens. Why are we putting this in rotogens? Shouldn't that be in REMs? When you're talking over here effects, I think it should be in REMs. 450 will cause death to about 50% of the people exposed in 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, like I said, you may not feel it at first, but 600 will cause death to almost everyone exposed 2 to 3 weeks afterwards. And you can get stuff that will cause it a lot sooner. So here's a radiation dose chart. Well, I wish I could blow this up. This shows, we go now. I got it at least divided in half here. Radiation dose chart. I broke it into 2 pieces. And this shows that sleeping next to someone, you get basically 0.05 microsieverts. Remember, a sievert is 100 REM, but this is microsievert. Micro is a millionth, okay? So that's a small, very small unit. So yeah, you get radiation just from sleeping next to somebody. All right. Living within 50 miles of a nuclear power plant, you get 0.9 microsieverts. Eating a banana, you get 0.1 microsieverts. So twice as much. So eating a banana is twice as bad as sleeping next to somebody. Living within 50 miles of a coal power plant. Coal power plants actually put out more radiation, believe it or not, because of radioactive carbon-14, I believe. You get about 0.3 microsieverts. When you get X-ray, you get 1 microsievert using a CRT monitor, the old monitors that were made like television tubes. For a year, you get a microsievert. Extra dose from spending 1 day in an area with higher than average background radiation, such as in Colorado Plateau. So you got the Colorado Plateau from my property in Snowflake, and you're there for 1 day. You actually get 1.2 microsieverts. Well, a lot of people live with 1.2 microsieverts per day. Microsieverts, that's a millionth of a sievert, okay? Dental X-ray gives you 5 microsieverts. So it makes a dental X-ray sound not really so bad. But when you watch them put the lead on, you really wonder, right? Background dose received by the average person over a normal day is 10 microsieverts. So that's why this don't look too bad. You get 10 microsieverts. This is what you get every day from background radiation. An airplane flight from LA to New York gives you 40 microsieverts. Okay, now a chest X-ray. So we go over on this side. A chest X-ray is 20 microsieverts. It starts adding up. All doses in the blue charts combined, all of these doses combined is about 60 microsieverts, so about 3 blocks. So now we're going to every 20 microsieverts in one little block here to understand the scale. Each dose to Tokyo in weeks followed a Fukushima event. Extra dose to Tokyo. This is what people in Tokyo were getting. Following the Fukushima's event was 40 microsieverts. So they were getting radiation Tokyo from Fukushima. Living in a stone, brick, or concrete building for a year, 70 microsieverts. So that's more than background radiation by a good shot of living in Colorado, okay, which is 1.2. Average total dose from 3 Mile Island incident to someone living within 10 miles was 80 microsieverts. Approximate total dose received at the Fukushima town hall over 2 weeks, just 2 weeks, 100 microsieverts. EPA yearly release limit for a nuclear power plant is 250 microsieverts. Yearly dose from natural potassium in the body, 390 microsieverts. So these radiations are within the realms that you shouldn't be too scared of. A mammogram, 40 microsieverts. Although no radiation is good. EPA yearly limit on radiation exposure to a single member of the public is 1 microsievert, okay? So 1,000 microsieverts, which is 1 sievert, excuse me. 1,000 microsieverts is 1 sievert. I don't know why they put it like that. So mammogram is the same thing. Mammogram is maximum external dose from, oh no, I read that wrong. Maximum external dose from 3 Mile Island accident. Okay, that was a maximum dose, was 1 microsievert. All right, well, I'm reading 1 millisievert. Okay, it's 1 millisievert. Let's make it a sievert. It's hard to read this stuff. Anyway, so what this is you start going up here, as you can see, normal yearly background dose about 85% from natural sources. Nearly all from the rest is from medical scans. So if you get medical scans and all this stuff, you're getting about 4 millisieverts. I'm reading this right. EPA reach target for a nuclear power plant, 30 microsieverts there. The dose spending an hour on the grounds of Chernobyl plant in 2010 is 6 millisieverts. So it varies. Chest X-ray. Oh, a chest CT scan. Chest X-ray is back over here. That's a chest X-ray. CT scan gives you a lot more radiation than just a chest X-ray. 7, I guess it's milli. It's hard to tell if that's M or the microsievert sign. Maximum yearly dose permitted for U.S. radiation workers is 50. Well, let me see if I can blow this up. I'm gonna have to go back and forth here because I can't read this. 50 millisieverts. I don't know if y'all can read. I'm gonna have to escape, or I won't be able to page through here anymore. So yeah, it's 50 millisieverts is what I thought. All right, let's go down to the next one. All right. Remember that was 50 millisieverts. So you come on this. This is getting to where you get into daily radiation, my friends. Daily radiation. So I'm going to try to blow this up again. I don't know if this will work, if y'all can see it this way. So we got that's 0.5 microsieverts there. Sievert is all this. So the yellow is in sieverts. And what they're showing here is that 10 millisieverts is now these. Each one of these is 10 millisieverts. Each one of these blocks. So approximate total dose of one station on the northwest end of Fukushima, 40 millisieverts. All combined doses in green on the previous page are about 75 millisieverts. Remember, we talked about 50 earlier. So dose received by 2 Fukushima plant workers, 180 millisieverts. Radiation worker 1 year dose rates 50 millisieverts. That's the limits. 50 millisieverts radiation dose worker. Lowest 1 year dose clearly linked increased cancer is 100 millisieverts. So if you get 100 millisieverts in a year, you could get cancer. Now we're getting in serious territory. 100 millisieverts. Now remember, sievert is 100 rad. Okay, so 100 millisieverts. Milli is, so this is really a tenth of a rad. Okay, this is 1/10 of a rad. And so if you get, another way to look at it is 100/10 of a rad. It's like 10 rad. So yeah, that's how you got to look at this stuff, guys. Dose count and symptoms of dose cause and symptoms of radiation poisoning. About 40 millisieverts, but it varies. Okay. Dose limit for emergency workers. This is emergency workers protecting valuable property is 100 millisieverts. So an emergency worker protecting valuable property gets to take the amount of radiation which is believed to cause cancer down the road. They allow that. But if you're doing a life-saving operation, they'll allow you to get 250 millisieverts. So that's past the limit where you can get cancer. And so you can see that we're getting in serious territory. If they let you do this, then you're trying to save somebody's life, but you're doing so at risk to your own life. You got to understand it. Severe radiation poison, in some cases fatal, is 2,000 millisieverts or 2 sieverts. 2 sieverts again are 200 rads. Remember that other chart I showed you? 200 rads could be fatal, get you sick. Let's see. Fatal dose, even with treatments, 8 sieverts. Now, usually fatal radiation poison is 4 sieverts. Again, 4 sieverts is 400 rad, 800 rad here. So these comport to the chart I showed y'all earlier. Escape. So for this, or y'all won't see this flipping through. I hope this don't mess this presentation up. So for children, the effects can be expected to be half the dose level. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go through here and I'm going to do half this presentation today, and I'm going to do another half in another show here. So we're going to do part 1 and part 2 of this, because this is getting to be very time consuming. I've done all this in an hour, but I spent more time in the radiation exposure part above. So I'm gonna have to cut this into 2 sections. For children, these effects can be expected to be half the dose level. So children can't take the dose that adults can take. That's what you need to understand. And again, if you get 30 to 70 rads, you can be from 6 to 12 hours, you can be getting some headache and nausea and vomit. Okay, this is the time aspect of it. If you get 70 to 150 rads, then 2 to 20 hours, you get transient mild nausea and vomiting up to 5 to 30% of the people. Or if you get 150 to 300 rads, this is where it actually kill you down the road, possibly, but mostly it make you sick. You get 2 hours to 3 days, transient to moderate nausea and vomiting, and 20 to 70% mild to moderate fatigability. All right, so you get weaknesses and other things, bleeding and fever. Wounding and burns will geometrically increase rapidly, increase morbidity and mortality. So this could get you in the fatal territory, but it's not so much if you get the, again, 400 rads, and above, you're in deep trouble. Here we are, 350 to 500 rads, 2 hours to 3 days, transit to moderate nausea and vomited in 50 to 90%. So yeah, you're going to be feeling this in just a few days, 2 hours to 3 days. And different individuals be affected differently. Yeah, you can expect frequent diarrhea, stools and anorexia, increased fluid loss, ulceration. All right, now we're getting serious. This is going to kill you. 500, almost 530 to 830 rads, 2 hours, 2 days, moderate to severe nausea and vomiting, and 80 to 100% of the people. From 2 hours to 6 weeks, moderate to severe fatigability and weakness, 90 to 100% of people. At 10 days to 5 weeks, medical care required for 50 to 100%. At the low end range, death may occur for 99% of personnel. At the high end range, high end range, death may occur for up to 99%. Remember what I said? You get the 600 rad, especially above 800. Yeah, 800 is trouble. Anticipated medical problems, including developing pathogenic and opportunistic infections, bleeding, fever, loss of appetite, GI, ulcerations, bloody diarrhea, severe fluid, and electrolyte fluids. Well, so you get a lot of problems here. You get a lot of problems. Hypertension, it just your blood vessels leak. You got a physical trauma. Yeah, well, this is probably going to kill you. Most likely you will die here. 830 plus, from 30 minutes to 2 days to the time now occurs. So you don't feel this stuff at first, guys. You're on the way to dying right here, but you may not even feel it for 2 hours. 30 minutes to 2 days, severe nausea, vomited, fatigability, weakness, dizziness. If you're getting sick in 30 minutes, you're in trouble. And disorientation, moderate to severe fluid imbalance, headache, bone marrow depletion within days. That's going to get you. And here the symptoms are predominant at higher radiation levels. Few, if any, survivors, even with aggressive immediate medical attention, make it. So even with aggressive immediate medical attention, very few will survive 830 rad plus. That's what you need to know. The good thing is that radiation decays very rapidly. Very rapidly. This is hours after an explosion. Bear in mind that this is what happens within 2 days. And this is dose rate. So if the dose rate were 1,000 rads per hour, 1,000 rads per hour, that's what's on this show. So, you can see how fast it drops off. After 2 hours, it's down to 480 rads. After 7 hours, it's down to 100 rads. So it drops off to 1/10 the power in 7 hours. But that is still 100 rads. Just remember, 200 rads, you're outside in this 2 hours, you're in trouble, okay? That doesn't mean that this number won't be a lot higher. Don't think that this is what a nuclear event's going to be. It can be higher than 1,000 rads per hour. So be careful, guys. I don't mean you can run outside and spend 2 hours partying after a nuclear event. Don't think that at all. 43 rads per hour, 14 hours after. And then 10 rads per hour, which is 1% of what you got up here after 48 hours. So you need to stay indoors. You need to do everything you can to stay indoors and out of this stuff in a shielded area for at least 3 days, if you can, 2 days at least. And if you have to venture out just briefly to take care of business, maybe after a couple of days you can do that. But make it in and out real fast if you're in a radioactive contaminated area. At some point, if you're in a highly contaminated area, you're going to have to leave. Because some of the stuff, the half-lives on this radioactive contamination, if you're in a fallout zone, are just too long. You will have to leave. All right, this is the same chart, basically just depicted differently. Okay, it shows you the same kind of curve. Now, if you're looking at the nuclear war aspect of this is where you expect the warheads, where they're at. United Kingdom, 225, France, 290, Israel, 90 to 100, Pakistan, 165, India, 156, Russia, over 6,000, US getting close to 6,000, 500, 550. China is estimated to have 350 by this count. I would say they've got way more than that, my friends. North Korea, 40 to 50. I would say China is pull one over us. I think they've got probably 4,000 of the stuff they're building out there now. All right, so this is targets. This is where they expect the targets to be. If you live in one of these areas, you are in a target potentially for a nuclear war. These are targets because this is where our missiles and strategic launch sites are at. red areas are where they expect wildfires to occur from these targeted events. So, my friends, you don't want to be in these areas too much. I don't know why they got wildfires going up here in the desert. When you got here in the mountains, yeah, you can have the fires. So these are the you don't want to be in these areas or downwind from them. Civilian targets got the yellow in them. Military targets got red, and infrastructure targets, that might be a nuclear power plant or a dam or something. I don't know, or really airfield. Airfields, long airfields are going to be targeted. You can see where I'm at. We've got infrastructure targets, probably Browns Ferry. Military targets, Redstone Arsenal. The civilian targets is probably Huntsville. Looks like 2 of them, maybe downtown, southeast Huntsville, where we got a lot of engineers. Another military target down here is probably Anderson Army Air Base. So we got a lot of targets in this area. So you got 3 kinds of burst. You got air burst, surface burst, and subsurface burst. Why would they do an air burst? Get a populated area, because once you're in the air, you radiate and cover the moist area. This makes it most effective at getting a lot of people. A surface burst it will cause the most, subsurface burst cause the most radiation. This is what you'll be taking out airfields with, and most of your infrastructure targets. When they're going for missile launch sites and NORAD and bunkers, where they think our military and our leadership are hiding, they're going to be trying to drill in for subsurface bursts. I mean, they're basically going to be blowing Mount Cheyenne to pieces, and they probably will. They're going for subsurface bursts there. These are the 2 that produce the most radioactive fallout, because it picks up all the dust from the ground and takes it up into the air. This will cause cities to burn. This big question is whether nuclear event winter scenarios are credible. Some people say, well, we had all these nuclear tests and we didn't have that effect. But most of those nuclear tests were in deserts or on islands or surrounded with water. So you didn't get all the fires that some people are counting to be in the dust from these events. And our subsurface burst that we tested was so deep down that none of this stuff came out. Surface burst, well, we did some of those, but not like I said, it was mostly in deserts and the islands. So you didn't get a lot of the other trash and debris that you might expect in a nuclear war. So I don't know, it's hard to say about those models. They might be a little off, but then again, they may have some credibility. This is what you get, the nuclear cloud diameter. One that is 0.2 megatons. You got 2 megaton devices out there. Would give you a diameter of 8 miles to your cloud. The height could go up 10 miles. A half a megaton, which we have a lot of weapons this size right here, 14-mile diameter with 12 miles going up. A 1 megaton, now Russia has a bunch of 2 megaton warheads, 20-mile diameter. So it's not linear, just because you double it. This is doesn't mean you're going to get twice the height. This is 20 miles, that's 14 miles. So it's kind of close, but not exactly. But well, that's in diameter. The height, though, is hey, only a mile more. You doubled it, but you only get another mile in height, mainly because of the way the atmosphere drops off. The thunderstorms are down here, Mount Whitney is down here. Give you some of the notion of scale. You can actually estimate the yield of a nuclear burst by the diameter and height of the cloud, and mainly the diameter. So, relationship of blast and initial radiation. This tells you that you got this blast wave. This is the overpressure, and this is the PSI. 1 PSI. If you are in an area where we get 1 PSI, and this is the different size warheads you got to worry about, then your relationship to getting radiation is probably negligible if initially from the blast itself, not from fallout. This is from the blast itself. If it's 2 PSI, you're still negligible for the direct radiation. Why? Because alpha and beta particles are blocked by a lot of your air, believe it or not. Gamma, you still might get some gamma, but you're going to get this gamma when you're really close in, guys. But the radioactive fallout's going to get you. That's what you got to worry about. Radioactive fallout, if you're not too close to the blast zone. These are related to how close you are to the blast zone. Yeah, if you got 20 PSI, you're in a lot of trouble. 12 PSI, well, I don't know how you could be negligible for a 1 megaton, because you're so far away from it. If you're 12 megaton, If you're a 1 megaton bomb and you got 12 psi of pressure in your area, you're actually a good distance from it. So you won't have as much effect from the gamma rays, because air actually will block radiation too. So this is the effects of the burst. This is the physical effects, and that also you can chart that back for, go back to the presentation, copy that, do a Photoshop of this chart here, and then look at these charts, the Photoshots of them, and look at, you can do basically control, print screen on a lot of your computers, or just take a picture of this, okay? This is the miles from the event for a ground burst. Now, we have a lot of weapons this size. Russians got bigger weapons typically, though. This shows that the 1 psi level is 5.8 miles out. 2 psi level is 3.6 miles out. Let's see, your houses might survive, but once you're outside of this, you don't have to worry too much about cracked windows. You'll get fires at 2.2 to 5.6 miles out. You get 5 to 2 psi. See, that's not a, you're not at that 20 psi. 20 psi here, everything is wiped out, even to 10 psi. If you're within the 30 psi, forget it, guys. That's ground zero. Destruction of all except hardened facilities in this area. 10 psi, you got some structure barely surviving. So really, you need to be outside the 2 psi at least to have a good shot at it. You prefer to be outside the 1 psi line. And this is people. This was taken, I believe, 6 miles away from a small nuke test where the military actually had people next to it. To give you some example, they were definitely outside the 1 psi line here, but they were witness to this event. All right. Now, if you take a 200 kiloton, this is a smaller burst, but it's higher up because this is an air burst, and you'll see that the miles go out. So I don't know why they're mixing these. They're not showing the same thing. This has more range because it's an air, and it's a smaller weapon. And it shows the 2 psi line at 4.2, the 1 psi line at 6.5. You're very likely to be called out in any of these areas and survive from the 5 psi out. You might even crawl out of this, guys, especially if you're in a good bunker in some of these places. You're in a hardened facility. All right, this is a 1 megaton air burst. Well, look here, guys. Now we're out to 11.2 miles for the 1 psi for an air burst. This is what Russia might be throwing at us. I would say if you're, go back here, but you might make it if you're 7.3 miles out. See, I am 14, I'm about 12 miles from the edge of town. I don't expect to be nuking the edge of town unless they miss. So, the targets for me are further in. So I'm thinking where I'm at, I'm good with that. I could probably even handle a 2 megaton blast in direct Huntsville. Unless they throw a SAR bomb at us, and it's all good. But that's the end. Possible effects of a 5 megaton blast. This is 5 megaton on the ground, out to 9 miles for that line there. Okay, guys. So this is the fallout patterns. Fallout's what you really got to know about. Fallout distance from ground in miles. After an hour, and this is wind speed. This is a 15-mile-an-hour wind, I believe, that they calculate these out. I don't see it on this chart. 15-mile-an-hour wind. You could have higher winds, lower winds. That's going to change all this. So this is this shows rads per hour. These are the different size of nuke events that would happen. Where's the? This is 1 hour. This is 1 hour, 6 hours, and 18 hours. The difference. And let's see. This is time of arrival. There's something missing off this chart. This is for a different size explosion, but this is what kind of patterns you can expect downrange after a nuclear event. And what we're talking the time. So you may, if you're close, you don't have so much time. You may have a few hours to prepare yourself if you're far enough downrange. This is in time. There's other charts for miles. Oh yeah, here's the miles. These are miles. This is time of arrival. And this is what the total footprint looks like after 1 hour, 6 hours, and 18 hours. This is so after 18 hours, most of these things have settled out for this for the most part. You're still gonna get cesium and stuff like that can spread around the world, guys. Don't forget that. Fallout patterns. Okay, here's the one that gives us a device size. It's 200 kilotons, 1 megaton. If you're looking at Russian devices, this is what you're going to be looking at, and it shows that 14 hours out, you might get 2 megatons. It's not going to be a 2 megaton. It's not going to be much different than this curve. And it shows a 3 hour, 4 hour, up to 14 hours and miles down range. See, this is going to almost 200 miles, guys. 200 miles is right here. 200 miles down range for a 1 megaton device. And it shows the good thing is, though, that this will fall out over time. So you're going to need to know where these fallout patterns go. They don't follow the wind. If you got too much fallout where you're at, you may have to leave. And that's just the bottom line. You may have to leave that area. Again, there's that chart, which kind of relates it back. Get a picture of it. All right. Here's what you got. All right. You've had a nuke event. What happens? First thing happens is if there's an explosion, you need to hit the ground, face down, hands overhead if you can. Protect your head from flying debris. Go hit the ground immediately. I mean, just drop, just like a rock, or throw yourself on the ground. If you can, you throw yourself into a lower point on the ground, especially if you're close, because you're going to have debris flying over your head. Lots of debris is going to be flying over your head. You're getting down to avoid being out in the blast of being rolled by this wind. But if you can get in a low point, if you can dive into a culvert, if you're far enough away and got that kind of advantage, this stuff moves at 700 and some odd miles an hour. It's going to be coming to the speed of sound, guys. Mach 1. You're going to get 2 blast waves. You're going to get a blast wave going over your head, but stay down, because it's also going to roll back the other way. You're going to have a blast wave roll over you and a blast wave going over. Do not look at this event. Do not look at the explosion. It will blind you. It will probably blind you if you look at it. You might be able to see the cloud toward the end as it ascends if you want to try to ascertain the size of the blast, but do not look at it at first. Even then, you shouldn't be looking at it, be honest. It can blind you. Because even what's different than with a conventional explosion and a nuclear explosion is a conventional explosion can produce a mushroom cloud. A lot of conventional explosions produce mushroom clouds, but you don't have radioactive particles being emitted from that mushroom cloud. And so you can look at a mushroom cloud of a conventional explosion. It will not cause you a problem. A nuclear explosion, you still have a lot of nuclear processes going on in that mushroom cloud, and it's going to be hot and burning. They actually look a little different if you know how to tell them. Now, this is what a blast wave did to a bus. Here is water falling out of the sky from a nuclear event, nuclear test in the ocean off those Bikini Islands. This is out in the desert in Nevada. Again, you see this burning here? You see that brightness? This is what you get in a nuclear mushroom cloud. You do not get this so much in conventional mushroom clouds. So a lot of people have been putting out some photos on the internet lately, claiming there's mushroom clouds and things like that in Syria. They don't look nuclear, my friends. This is here you can see the expanding shock wave on the ground from this test at sea. Now that is on the ground, my friends. This is that wave that's rolling out. This is that pressure wave I showed you those trees. And here it is. Here's that same pressure wave on a desert test site in Nevada. Most likely. Now you see this? You don't get this. You do not get this in conventional explosion. See all this fire? Yeah, you may get some, but not like this. Not quite like that. Or look at that. You see all the fire that's still in this cloud? All right, this is a comparison of different events here. 1 megaton gives you a radius of 5.1 miles. You get 2.7 for a 20 kiloton. This is a 20 megaton. I think our Castle Bravo device had a 15 kilotons, a radius of the cloud of 20 miles. If you're under this cloud, you're going to be getting a lot of radioactive particles coming at you guys. You do not want to be under that cloud unless you were shielded by Earth, like I showed you earlier. Of course, the Russians' largest bomb ever tested was a 50 megaton half-star bomber. This torpedo here, this status 6 Poseidon torpedo, is capable of carrying a full bomb. It's sized to be able to carry a 100 megaton bomb. device the size which we've never fully tested. And there's Putin in one of his little submarines. Again, bear in mind, you got to have the shielding to stay away from, to not be irradiated. If you have an event like this, you put as much distance and mass between you and that cloud as possible immediately and get out of the fallout. You got to find as much shelter as possible. And I'm going to go more into sheltering in a subsequent video. This shows you the kind of damage you can get from, say, a 50 kiloton air burst. What it can do to you, eardrum failure threshold is 5 psi. They got 10 psi level, overpressure, lethality. If you are within 10 psi, it can kill you. Just a 10 psi shock wave is enough to kill you. You can get impact lethality from flying debris at 3.3 psi. You can get impact skull fracture at 2.3 psi. That's why you don't be outside 2 psi. You can still get impact injury, even at 1.8 psi. Stuff can be getting thrown around. And then glass lacerations from glass fragments. What's everybody do when they see a blast? They hear something go to the window to look. Your window's shattered, even at 1 psi, and come in on you. See, one shot outside 1 psi, that's where you're safe from the window shattering. But you could survive probably within this range here. And you might even, well, you're going to survive at 10 psi, but you're going to be in a lot of bad stuff going on. You're going to have all kind of fires and things going on in that level. Impact lethality, this is where things can hit you, 3.3 psi, and kill you from being thrown by the that blast wave. And this is miles from ground zero. Yeah. We want to alerts, tap probable, steady blast, wavering or short blast for 3 minutes is take cover, it's coming. And then again, why worry about just a mere nuclear war? Yeah, you see how bright this is. This is so bright that this is done in the daylight, but it makes everything else look dark. The camera image. I like this. I've used this image in a lot of my presentations because it's so stark. Well, let's get into the nuclear power plants, my friends. Nuclear power plants over the past 5 decades, the entire industry has produced 87,000 metric tons of used nuclear fuel at a rate of about 2,000 metric tons per year. Now, the older stuff is not as radioactive as the newer stuff, and once it gets past about 10 years, they dry casket. They can put it in dry stuff, but when it's in those fuel rod pools, we have to worry about it because they're clad in zircaloy alloy, which will burn upon contact with air when it's hot. And I've had people arguing about that, but I got the test results and sent in national laboratories to prove that's the case. These rods are covered by 20 foot of water at plant sites around the world. We got 97 active plants in the United States. If the water is not continuously pumped in, the hot rods will evaporate it all away. And we have electric pumps to keep water on them. And it evaporates at 160 gallons per minute at a lot of these facilities. Okay. So if we fail to harden the electric grid, all of these, all this stuff is subject to go into the atmosphere. I don't know if I need to update that chart. We have to have our power grid. We have to protect it, my friends. In my own backyard, we've got quite a bit of this material just waiting for the grid to go out to go up in smoke. So if you do the numbers, at 87,000 metric tons, this is the number of pounds. Russia and US have roughly 14,600 warheads. If you had 141 pounds of nuclear material per warhead, which is what little boy had, you could have enough spent waste to equal 93 full-scale nuclear wars, just sitting around the backyards waiting for the power to go out, go up the smoke, basically. So yeah, all right, some of that is dry cask. I will grant that, but guys, this is not good. We have a lot of radioactive stuff in the spent fuel rod pools alone. But mind you, I talk about spent fuel rod pools because that's the part we normally ignore. The reactors are worse. The reactors are indeed worse. They have more. And that's Browns Ferry Nuclear Power Plant. That's the reactor 1, boiling water reactor being produced. We had a tornado that almost took that plant out. And guys, you better be concerned even with amateur efforts or small efforts. This is what I was doing back in, this picture was taken back in 1997. So that was, well, 1998. So this was about 24 years ago. This is the kind of stuff I was doing 24 years ago, building these devices that could deliver rockets into the upper atmosphere. I was doing all this on a shoestring budget, guys. Launching balloons. A balloon itself can carry a high altitude electromagnetic pulse device that won't radiate across the entire nation, but you can take out cities, you can take out coastal regions, entire regions with something just from a balloon alone. This is that little blonde hair right there down at the end. That's me. This is our balloon launch return vehicle. This is on the deck of the St. Michael Calais utility boat out in the Gulf of Mexico. So I've talked often about threats of things in Mexico taking out our grid. This is my cheap access to space prize, cat's prize rocket, and year 2000 being launched from the Gulf of Mexico off of another boat called the Mr. Offshore. And yeah, so you can see me, I'm out here in different boats in different one of these photographs. Let's see, somewhere here I got that is off the NASA Pearl River barge. So yeah, I went out to sea several times. I developed the avionics to defeat the COCOM limits of GPS. This is what small groups can do stuff. So you better worry that small groups, I can on a shoestring budget, put a threat to taking out our power grid. And if our power grid goes out, you could lose you'll get a radiological event from these nuclear power plants. That's what I'm trying to tell you guys. And so this is at altitude here, 480 kilometers. You could get coverage of the entire United States, most of Canada and Mexico too. Yeah, that would be a bad thing. And guys, there's also these backpack nukes that could be used to cause a lot of problems. It could take out targets that cause a lot of radiation to cities. The United States developed them, Russia developed them, and Russia had testified to us that there's 80 of these backpack nukes that they had pre-positioned these in the United States. We didn't know that at the time. To be able to take out bridges and dams and nuke plants. They had 108 of these. Well, I don't know if it'd be right. It wouldn't be right on the site, but close enough. They called them suitcase bombs. We called ours backpack. They had 80 of these. They claim that we can't find. So that's what we got to bear in mind, guys. There were 80 of these that they couldn't find. I'm going to break this presentation here. What we're going to go into tomorrow is your protection, where the radiation can go, how to protect yourself, what the shielding is, what the shelters are like. We're going to go through all this tomorrow. And but I've spent too much time on this today. So this can be, guys, I can make probably 5 days of presentations out of all this or more. I will probably one day do a class on it, but I'm going too long into this so far. So bear in mind, guys, this is what's possible. I'm going to go more into this in my next presentation. This is part 1. Part 2 will be coming up soon. I did this whole thing in an hour for a group just a few days ago, about a couple weeks ago. So bear in mind, guys, this is our goal, is to survive. The proposition of my channel is help you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. So just bear this in mind. I'm going to do the second part, hopefully tomorrow. And this one will post this afternoon or this evening. I'll post this evening because I got to let it process and do some other things. So my friends, this is real. You got to pay a lot of attention, take it serious. So stay tuned for the rest of this presentation, and I'll be back with you on that. So that I'm going to say, Greg out.